इसको got it, huh? Being live streamed. तुम भी कुर्सी इधर कर, तुम आ जाओ.
Namaskar. Hearty welcome to BIMSTEC Literature Festival and being conducted by Sahitya Academy and Foundation of SARC Writers and Literature, FOSWAL. So on behalf of Ajit Kaur ma'am, who is already presented with us, and Sahitya Academy, I heartily welcome all of you to this 9th session that was dedicated to the paper presentation. And in this session, we have with us Sri Anand Kumar ji from India, who is going to chair this session. And apart from him, we have Sri Ashraf Jewel ji from Bangladesh. Doctor, I think just now is yet to join. Fakhrul Alam ji from Bangladesh. We have with us Dr. Pushparaj Acharya from Nepal and Ms. Nipunika Dilani ji from Sri Lanka. And we have in this session, we have 5 paper presentations. Now, may I request Sri Anand Kumarji to kindly take over the session.
Thank you, sir. Respected Ajit Kaurji and Sri Coordinator ji, my dear friends, Fakhrul Alam ji, Ashraf ji, Pushparaj ji, and Nipunika ji, I begin with this session, and I would request you to please stick to the time, because if you delay it, the next session, the last speaker will have to compromise with his time, and the next session will begin. So I will request you to exactly at the end of 15 minutes, please finish the talk. So now I invite Sri Ashraf Jewel ji from Bangladesh. He is an old presence with all a young man, and he is always present in all our literary festivals. So I am very happy to invite him. Ashraf Jewel ji, please come and present your paper.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your nice introduction. I would not waste my time. Rather, I would like to start my paper. The title of my paper is Bengali Literature from Ancient to Contemporary, an Overview. The Bangla is essentially a member of the Indo-European family of languages. The ancient language has developed from a form of Prakrit or Middle Indo-Aryan language to finally materialize from the Apabhrangsha in the 10th century. Bengali literature has been divided into 3 main periods: ancient, which may be dated from 950 AD to 1350 AD, medieval from 1350 AD to 1800 AD, and the modern one from 1800 AD to the present. The present paper dwells upon the evolution of Bengali literature from the ancient period till date. Just very short history of Bengal, like historical information about the Bengal region is available only from the Gupta period. There was 320 to 520 AD. The Gupta ruled Bengal from Magadh, that is now is known as Bihar. The kingdom of Gaur came into existence in Bengal after the decline of the Guptas. Shashank became the first ruler of Bengal, who ruled around 606 AD. The various dynasties which ruled Bengal were Pala dynasty, Malla dynasty, Sains, Devas, Shahi, and Mughal dynasty. The Nawabs grew in power when the Mughal power began to decline in Bengal. The Nawabi regime ended in Bengal with the defeat of Sirajudullah in 1757. The foreign influences like Portuguese, Danish, Dutch, French, and British started affecting the country in late 17th century. In 1764, after the Battle of Buxar, Bengal became the part of British Empire. Calcutta was officially declared the capital of India in 1772, which was shifted to Delhi in 1911. In 1947, when the India attained independence, Bengal was divided between India and Pakistan. East Bengal was given to Pakistan, whereas West Bengal remained with India. In 1971, East Bengal became independent as Bangladesh. Many eminent literary personalities of world literature belongs to this area and the language. Now, evolution of Bengali literature, ancient period. The spread of Aryan languages in Bengal region started in 3rd century BC with the conquest of Bengal by the Moors. The ancient period, the Bengali literature is survived through 48 spiritual hymns known as Charjapad, which was composed by Buddhist monks. The composers of the Charjapad hymns include Luipa, Bhushukupa, Kanhupa, and Shabhurpa. Except these spiritual hymns, no significant Bengali literature has been found in this age after Charjapad till medieval age. Medieval age, which was a period which was 1350 AD to 1800 AD. During this period, Bangla literature developed in 3 main areas like Vaishnava literature, Mongala literature, and translation literature. This period also witnessed the beginning of Muslim Bangla literature. The medieval period in the history of Bengali literature witnessed the growth of different literary writings. Besides the composition of lyrics and poetry, genre of translation came into existence in medieval period, and many Sanskrit texts were translated into Bengali language. There is also the age of Kavya, which described the supreme power of goddess and gods and goddess. The poet Baru Chandidas was the greatest of Vaishnava writers who translated Joydev's Sanskrit lyric of Radha and Krishna into Bengal. During the rule of Shah dynasty in Bengal, not only led to the social, political, and cultural prosperity, but also nurtured Bengali literature. It was during the rule of Nusrat Shah, who was the son of the Sultan Alauddin Hussain Shah, that Bengali poets started composing lyrics and kanka. Padavali or lyrical literature became famous in this period, where the innumerable poets wrote the story of Radha and Krishna. Some of these poets were Chandidas, Govindodas, Lochan Das, Rai Shekhar, Narottam Das, Narahari Das, Balaram Das, et al. Sri Krishna Vijay translation of the Sanskritic Srimad Bhagavata was composed by Maladhar Basu in 15th century. The translated work, also known as Govinda Mangal or Govinda Vijay, was believed to be the earliest translation work in Bangla. Krittibash Oza in 15th century was the first to translate Ramayana into Bangla. In the 17th century, Chandravati, widely considered as the first woman poet of Bengali language, wrote Ramayana Gatha. The most important and popular Bangla Mahabharata was composed by Kashiram Das, an eminent poet of medieval Bengali literature. It was around 1602 to 1610. Mangal Kavya is a group of Bengali Hindu religious texts composed more or less between 13th century and 18th century, notably consisting of narrative of indigenous deities of rural Bengal in the social scenario of the Middle Ages. Another genre of Mangal Kavya is Chandi Mangal, which belongs to the Puranic goddess Chandi. The famous poet of Chandi Mangal were Manik Datta and Mukundaram Chakraborty. The Muslim poets also enriched Bengali literature during medieval period. They introduced narrative and romantic poems in literature, which were the adaptations of translations of Arabic and Persian romances. Shah Muhammad Sogir, Jainuddin, Sheikh Faizulla, Daulat, Uzir, Bahram Khan were important and renowned Muslim poets in the medieval history of Bengali literature. Yusuf Zulekha by Shah Muhammad Sogir and Nabi Bangsho by Sayyid Sultan became popular literary creations in the medieval period. Abdul Hakim depicted the life of Muhammad Prophet in his famous work Nurnama. In 17th century, Bengali literature possessed and was equipped with the secular romantic verses, tales penned solely by the Islamic community. Even the Muslims of Arakan who maintained close intellectual contacts with Bengal were active in literary pursuits in Bengali literature. Chandravati by Quraishi Magan Thakur became the part of late medieval period. Daulat Qazi, a renowned Muslim poet of medieval period, wrote Shoti Moina Lord Chandrani, which was the first Bangla romance. Daulat Qazi did not complete the poem, which was later on completed by Alaul. He was the most prolific writer of the era. Alaul wrote Saiful Malik Badiuজ্জামান, Sikandar Nama, Ranthal Nama. His literary work, Padmavati, was believed to be his finest poem. The decline of the Mughal Empire in late medieval period around 1700 to 1800 AD and the establishment of British and European trading powers in Bengal region affected the literary creation. However, the tradition of Mongol Kabba, Vaishnav literature and translation work continued. Hindu Puranas and Islamic thoughts influences the literary productions of medieval period to a great extent, which resulted into Padavali and Mongol Kabba. Dharma Mongol grew in this period with several poets including Manikram Ganguly, Ramakanta Roy, Narasingha Bosu, Sadev Chakraborty et al. Ananda Mongol, a Bengali narrative poem, utilized Hindu goddess Annapurna worshipped in Bengal. Ramaprasad Sen was an exception because of his sincere devotion to the literature. He composed Shakta Padavali, Vidya Sundar Kahini, and Krishna Kirtan. Other poets of the genre were Radhakanta Mishra, Nidhiram Acharya, and Kavindra Chakraborty et al. Now, modern period. The modern period of Bengali literature started with the foundation of Fort William College in 1800. The powerful prose literature developed in this period along with the rise of periodical literature and new poetic genre. Writers of modern period experimented with different forms of literary wings. The poet in this period consciously transcends the traditional verses to the modern poetry, which brought changes in the theme and structure of the poetry. Essay writing, plays, and novels made their powerful presence in the modern period. Dom Antonio's Brahmin Roman Catholic Sangbad was the first Bangla book to be printed in late 17th century. The Portuguese missionary Manuel da Ajamcam wrote the first Bangla grammar, which was named Vocabularium Idioma Bangala. Then Nathaniel Brassey Haled in 1751 wrote the first Bangla grammar titled A Grammar of Bangla Language. I think it was around 1776 and which was printed in 1778 from Hooghly Press. William Carey, who came to Bengal for missionary work, composed Mathai Rachita Mongol Samachar, Bangla translation of Bible in 1800, and later on he joined Fort William. A team of scholars of Bengali language led by William Carey started writing textbooks in Bangla. The scholars who helped in this development of Bangla prose along with William Carey were Ramram Bosu, Chandicharan Munshi, Tarini Charan Mitra, Rajiv Mukhopadhyay, Goloknath Sharma, Mrityunjay Vidyalankar et al. The modern period of Bengali literature also witnessed the genre of essay writing initiated by Bhudev Mukhopadhyay. Some of Bhudev's work in this genre were Bigyan Rahasya, Vivido Samalochana, and Krishna Charito. Other essays include Troilokanath Sanal, Kalish Prasanna Ghosh, Chandranath Bosu, Ramdas Sen, and Chandrasekhar Mukhopadhyay et al. The Bengali Renaissance, socio-cultural and religious reform movement during 19th century began with Ram Mohan Roy. During this period, Bengal witnessed an intellectual awakening which questioned the prevailing orthodox thinking of the society, status of women, the caste system, child marriage, widow remarriage, and superstitious beliefs and religion. The trend of lyrical poems was manifested in modern period also through Kavigan and Jatra. The trendsetter of lyrical poetry, Biharilal Chakraborty, became popular for her poetic work, Sharada Mongol. Other poets of 19th century were Surendranath Majumdar, Akshay Kumar Boral, Rajinikanto Sen, Govindo Das, Girinda Mohini, and Kamini Roy. The blank verse and sonnet from in the Bengali literature were introduced by Michael Madhusudana Datta. His epic Meghnadbadh Kabbo was the combination of Eastern subject with Western techniques and style. His sonnets collection titled Chododashpadi Kavitavali was published in 1866. Michael established modernism in Bangla plays as well. Krishna Kumari, written in 1861, was the first successful tragedy in Bangla by Madhusudan Dotto. In the light of Sipai Mutiny, a magnum opus from Dhaka in the name of Nil Darpan, that was the Indigo Mirror. Dinabandhu Mitra was the writer of this play and absolutely turning the tables in Indian independence movement, looking towards its prolonged fighting future. The short stories and novels become part of Bengali literature by Sharat Chandra Chattopadhyay. He depicted the daily life of Bengali people through his novels. Pramod Chaudhary introduced the format of short story in Bengali literature also. Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay was an eminent writer, poet, and journalist who gave India its national song, Vande Mataram, which was written in 1876 and published in 1882. He was not only the key figure in literary renaissance of Bengal, but put Indian as well as Bengali literature at different level of excellence. Rabindranath Tagore was an extraordinary artist who made contributions to all genre of Bengali literature in late 19th and early 20th century. He dominated the Bengali literature through his literary genius for an entire generations and continued to do so even after his demise till date. Some other poets tried to establish themselves in their own way, like Satyendranath Dotto, Mohitulal Mujumdar, and Josimuddin. During this age, two people who possessed nearly the same literary potentiality as Tagore were Jivanananda Das and Bibhutibhushan Bandyopadhyay. Tarashankar Bandyopadhyay is yet another notable and respected personality of Bengali literature, known for his novels, while Annoda Shankar for his prose of ideas. A blood-boiling and flaming poet in Bengali literature is Kazi Nazrul Islam. He indeed was invited to be a part of post-partition Bangladesh as the national poet and whose works surpass even the sectarian restrictions. Though he is
Dr. Ashraf ji.
Yeah.
I think time is over. Time is over. So I will request you now to stop here. And,
can I complete within 2 minutes?
No, because we have already exceeded 3 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you have to, I'm very sorry.
So going to my conclusion.
Just say one line, what you concluded.
Okay.
Just say one line and conclude.
So the modern period in the history of Bengali literature witnessed the various genre of literature beside verse, novels, short story, drama, essay writing, travelogue, and translation flourished in this period. A lot of eminent writers are writing in different genre of Bengali language, and for sure they will make Bengali language proud with their excellent creation. So thank you for having patience, and thanks for you to be with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. And now, in the end, I will make my conclusions, but now I'll invite Professor Fakhrul Alam, and he needs no introduction to all the viewers. He's a very famous professor of English from Dhaka University, and I do not have his detailed bio with me, so I'll just say a few words. And he's a very well-published person from almost all the top ranking publishers. He has been published, and his book on Jivanananda Das is still with me. That is one of the hallmarks in the Bengali translation, and he's an old friend. And now, Professor Fakhrul Alam, please present your paper.
Thank you, Dr. Anand Kumar, and hello, greetings, Shubhetcha Namaskar. I was asked to talk about my favorite book. Respects to Ajit ji, before I forget. So I was asked to talk about my favorite book. So here I go. My favorite book, over the years, I've had many favorite books, and I've been totally captivated by at least one of them at any one period of time. Indeed, once I began to take literature in English seriously, I was completely swept away by one book or the other that I came across at the University of Dhaka, BA Honours and MA English Department syllabuses year after year. In my first year as an undergraduate, for instance, I read Lawrence's Sons and Lovers compulsively, finding in its protagonist Paul Morrell's growing up into a young man's a storyline parallel with mine. Although he was a minor son in Nottingham in the early 20th century, and I, a boy growing up in Dhaka in the mid-1950s and 60s, and the son of middle-class parents. A couple of years later, it was Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. For the story of the Bingley girls and their marriage encounters sounded familiar to me. For I too had 4 sisters whose marriages had become central to my parents' thinking in all kinds of ways. And in my MA, I read a book which harpooned me fully for a decade. This was Melville's Moby Dick, a whale of a book. I'm sure many of you in the virtual audience will agree. In all 3 cases, I read not only the novels I mentioned, but almost everything by Lawrence, Austen, and Melville I came across. Indeed, Melville's fiction became the subject of my master's dissertation at Simon Fraser University. But in the 1990s, I began to pay attention to Bangla writing seriously, something I had neglected for long, thanks first to an English medium education exclusively geared to the O-levels that scanted our own literature, and then my specialization in literature in English afterwards. I began to read Bangla poetry intensively for the first time in this decade, although I had read some fiction in the language over the years. And it was sometime in the middle of this 1990s that I came across Jivanananda Das's verse in an edition of his selected poems by the Bangladeshi poet critic Abdul Manan Syed. I'd like to stress that this poet was born in 1899 in Borishal, a very green district crisscrossed by innumerable rivers, all heading ultimately for the nearby Bay of Bengal. He died in what seemed to be an accidental death in Kolkata in the mid-1950s. Das's verse possessed me completely, leaving me, who had till then read only some Bangla poetry, but had concentrated mostly in fiction and non-fictional prose in English, with the urge to translate his verse into English. For the next 3 years, I kept going back to Das's poems for the beauty, for the way they immortalized in verse the beauty of Bengal, and for the way they made the poets intimate, made me the poets intimate. For it is only when one translates intensely, all caught up in the source text, that one comes closest to the mind speech, as well as the deep emotional life of the poet. Having translated Das, surely the greatest modern Bengali poet, I felt I had to translate Rabindranath Tagore's poetry, the greatest poet and literary personality Bengal had produced. Even though in the 1960s and 70s, I had only paid sustained attention to poetry, fictional and non-fictional prose and plays in English, how could I have escaped Tagore then? He was everywhere in the Dhaka I was in, and very much part of the mindscape of us Bangladeshis as we moved towards becoming citizens of Bangladesh. His work was championed in the media. His songs were sung in events such as the Bangla New Year festivities in mid-April. Cultural events everywhere spurred by nationalism highlighted him in one way or the other. Besides, my father was addicted to Rabindranath's songs and listened to him on the radio whenever he could, making us share his delight in the melodies then. My mother, for her part, quoted him all the time to give her children a sense of what we should be emulating and where we were going wrong. In other words, Rabindranath was very much part of my consciousness, although I had occluded him till now. As I began to read him in the turn of the decade after translating Jivanananda, I felt I had to read as much of his works as I could. Inevitably, I began to translate many of his poems. By the time his sesquicentenary came up in 2011, I was invited to co-edit an anthology of his works, and that led to the extensive reading of the myriad-minded writer's work, and increasing familiarity with this wonderful personality as well as writer. And this is how I came to my favorite book of the last decade or so, Tagore's Gita-Bitan. It is a book that is always on my study desktop computer shelf over 10 years now. It is something I resort to every now and then. Sung melodiously and passionately by a favorite singer, a song by Tagore so allures me into rendering its spirit in another language that I feel I have to come as close to it as possible by translating it to the best of my ability. This means not only listening to the song again and again, but also reading it on the printed page repeatedly, word by word, line by line, and stanza by stanza, till I feel I have been able to capture every aspect of it nuanced by Tagore by blending the tune and the song lyric, as well as I could in the English language. In the end, of course, I failed to do so after a point. But the fascination of what is so appealing when heard, even if in the last analysis the task is an impossible one, induces me to render it into an alien language system after repeated readings and attempts to come up with a version that is close to the original in every way. I hope thereby to come to the heart of the song, and I'm content to spend an hour or so on a few lines so that I can make its meaning clear to myself and then to others. I should add that about 350 poems that I've translated will come out in a book at the end of this year. Truly, there's a magical quality in the songs collected in my favorite book of this time, Tagore's Gita Bitan. It is a book that has also kindled the imagination of quite a few people, singers, musicians, and translators, over 8 years now, making them represent the song lyrics either as songs to be sung or as translations meant for foreign and even Bengali language speakers, who might otherwise listen to a song swept away by the tune and opening lines, without bothering with the later lines or making no attempt to understand its content. The net result at the end of a few hours spent first reading many of the songs closely, then reading my own translation again and again, is a satisfaction that I've been able to capture its essence in English through my translations. After all, and as Tagore himself has said, the essence of a song is universal, even if its stress is local and national. Why should I, as a translator, then not attempt to translate his songs for the world at large, as well as myself, even if their loveliness is uncatchable? In the last analysis, he himself has led the way and had learned the lessons along the process that were worth considering for later translators. Let me point out to the non-Bengali viewers of this Phosphorus webinar that the title Tagore gave to the volume indicates that Gita Bitan is meant to invite readers and musical devotees of the poet-composer to his garden of songs. In all, the volume contains over 2,300 songs, nearly 1,800 of whose tunes can be found in the musician-poet's Swarbitan with their musical notation. In fact, there are sites now that you can Google and access where you can find the Bengali words, some English translations and notations, and even brief histories of the origins of the most commonly heard songs. Let me point out too that Gita Bitan itself is divided into 6 sections: songs of devotion, love, the 6 seasons of Bengal, patriotic songs, songs for festive and miscellaneous occasions, songs written for his plays and other publications. In the final form, the Gita Bitan was published in 1941, the year the poet died. By now, it has been reprinted with new inclusion from scattered sources innumerable times. To conclude, why is Rabindranath Tagore's Gita Bitan my favorite book? He had himself said to Bengalis in 1939, "You can forget me, but how can you forget my songs?" Tagore's collection of songs connects me to him endlessly, becoming a way of connecting me with the universe and the supreme being, and even my departed parents. They stir my patriotic side and make me one with the seasons of my country and its landscape, and whatever is still romantic in me. And as I head towards the great unknown, they console me that there are possibilities of communion after we depart from this world as well. Thank you.
So, thank you, Professor Fakhrul Alam. And hello. Thanks a lot. It was a great presentation. You and both, Ashraf, they have presented so well in such a compact manner. And I did not get the feeling that you are talking of a different history, of a different country, of a different language. I feel that it is a common shared history. And through these conferences, we realize it more and more that we are basically one and we share the same ideas and thoughts. And thank you very much. And now I'll invite Pushpa Acharya ji, and I'll request Pushpa Acharya ji to say a few words about himself because I do not have his bio. And so I'll request you to say a few words about you and then begin your presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Anand Kumar ji, and hello, Ajit ji, Professor Alam. I'm from Nepal. At the moment, I'm in Toronto, and my research particularly focuses on, at the moment, on the concept of the nation states and the novels in South Asia. What I will talk about today will be about the first Nepali novel, a romance, a fantasy romance genre, and then its entanglements with the local traditions. Before I do that, I would like to thank Professor Alam, because I have been listening to some of the songs, including like Anandadhara Voice, Bhuvani, and others, and have remained an inspiration for a long time. Like this essay particularly focuses on how like early novel, Nepali novel, which was published in 1903 but written in 1880s, has sort of entanglement with the narrative traditions in South Asia. And it was more about mistake, but the part I will present here will be mostly about the relationship with the narrative traditions in South Asia. So the premise of the modern novel, particularly the realistic novel, is that it's a modern genre and it traveled from somewhere in the West or something. So the novelistic tradition in Nepali should look at the adventure romance tradition to find its roots. The romance is heroic and centered around an individual whose adventures explore the wonders of the world. It is a traditional genre suited to express a pre-modern political dispensation, that is, the feudal world. In the feudal society, the king or the hero contains the evil and offers a redemption at the end, as the Nepali adventure novel, Veer Charitra, or The Deeds of the Brave, by Girish Pallab Joshi shows. So when we say Charitra or Charit, means it's a life story, tale, adventures, the narratives of the great deeds. So hence, like in Sanskrit, there is story of Datta Kumar Charitra by Dandit. The story is of the 7th century book, the stories of 10 young men. Charit also means a person in the novel, Charitra, and plays as well as a particular attribute to human being. In Nepali, Bir is not just brave or a courageous person or a man, but it also refers to an assistant or a messenger of shamans and witches. They can be humans or non-humans. For example, the cats in Joshi's novel. In recent times, literary critics such as Meenakshi Mukherjee have recognized tangled vernacular influences on South Asian novels. I suggest that novelistic form of the first Nepali romance novel, Bir Charitra by Girish Pallab Joshi, is the result of an encounter between South Asian vernacular cosmopolitanism and British imperial cosmopolitanism. The publication of the novel emerges from print culture, yet it creates a world with the narrative devices available in the storytelling traditions, Sanskrit, Prakrit, or Apabhramsha, among others. It imagines an audience that is familiar with Sanskrit cosmopolitanism that shared vocabulary, images, and narrative techniques across the boundaries of the states and nations. Unlike other Nepali tilasmi or magical novels published in Benares, and most of them were published in Benares in late 19th century and early 20th century because publication with the dictatorial prime ministerial system in Nepal, like it was not mostly allowed there. Veer Charitra situates itself more in local politics, events, people, characters, culture, and geography. In the opening of the novel, a famine prompts the departure of the protagonist's family from their village in Midwestern Nepal. Just a few decades before the publication of the novel, a famine had ravaged the different parts of Nepal, including Kathmandu. That's particularly 1863 to 65. While Veer Charitra is magical, there are seeds of realism there. However, it is only after the 1930s that the Nepali novels started to represent the world with the different forms of realism. Veer Charitra focuses on the conquests and state building through making allies, which seems to be one of the central strategies of survival for a landlocked state like Nepal, which is surrounded by more powerful countries. Each part of the novel illustrates a particular strategy of politics, like the Sanskrit book of tales, Hitopadesha. The first part of the novel is about politics of making friends and allies. The second is about waging and winning wars. The third part is about creating a wedge between allies or friends. And the final part is about politics of peace building through treaties. So if you remember, Hitopadesha, it has like 4 sections, Mitra Lava, Suhrida Veda, Vigraha, and Sandhi, which Joshi reverses the order of the second and the third in the novel. The Nepali rulers at the time, afraid of the power of pleasure and the pleasures of imagination, had banned several other printed works that excited people's imagination. Joshi's adventure romance adopted and localized the storytelling traditions practiced in India. Joshi borrowed elements from Sanskrit tales, Urdu dastans, Hindi and Bengali romance novels, and from theater. At the same time, he blended them with the stories about the Nepali folk and ethnic spirits and beings, such as Jhakri, a shaman, and Niri, a female shaman of the forest. The commercial success of Devaki Nandan Khatri's Hindi fantasy adventure romance, Chandrakanta, of which the first part was also translated and published in Nepali by 1902, inspired Nepali novelists and entrepreneurs in Banaras, where Joshi had lived with his parents and studied Ayurveda in the 1880s. Khatri's Tilasmi, or magical novel Chandrakanta, written in 1887 and published in 1888, presents a world of princes and princesses and their adventures, wars, and court politics. It borrows the narrative elements from Urdu oral storytelling, Dastan tradition. In romance tradition, in Urdu adventures from Dastan of Mir Hamza, Francis W. Pritchett identifies 4 pillars of Dastan Goi's oral narrative tradition: the elaborate account of war, of magnificent court life, of gorgeous women and love, and of magic and trickery. Sadashiva Sharma Adhikari, who was an entrepreneur publisher, Nepali publisher based in Banaras, also translated Khatri's novel into Nepali and wrote and published his own adventure romance named Mahendra Prabha in 1902 in his Upanyas Tarangini, a monthly magazine that planned to publish the novels in a series because there were novels in, I quote, English, Persian, Bangla, and Punjabi languages. And the Indians kept asking him what novels existed in Gorkha Bhasha, like Nepali Bhasha as it was known. The second and the third parts of Mahendra Prabha were never published. But Kumar Pradhan, who is his literary historian based in Darjeeling, Sikkim, praises how the first part of the novel offered the readers an experience of wonderful world. Another critic, Taranath Sarma, refuses to call Sadashiva Sharma's works novels because they lack national character or portrayal of their time. Veer Charitra too presents a royal court, its etiquettes and intrigues, the excitement and the opportunity for battle, the display of valor, splendid places, palaces, gardens, cities, and hunting grounds. Veer Charitra, however, takes more elements from traditional Sanskrit tales and Nepali folk beliefs and stories while blending them with historical events. Joshi borrows the framing story from Sanskrit Katha Sarit Sagara, the ocean of the stream of stories. One may also trace the roots to two major works of Sanskrit story literature, Brihad Katha or Dandi's Dasakumar Charitra, which both had been translated into Nepali in 1790s. Part 1 of Veer Charitra, published by Kathmandu's Pashupat Press in 1903, sold out quickly, and its 120 printed pages offered the novel experience of pleasure in Devanagari script to Nepali readers in Kathmandu. So this particular press, Pashupat Press, was established in Kathmandu in 1894 and was an outcome of the private entrepreneurship of poet and publisher Motiram Bhatta, who was also based in Banaras, and he used to publish from there as well as in Kathmandu. And he is also the same person who published the first major work, the Nepali Ramayana by Bhanubhakta Acharya, in second half of the 19th century. The women in the palace harem listened to Joshi's novel, often read out by the author himself. Some among children who were prohibited from enjoying this new pleasure of the novel still managed to read it secretly by stealing the books in some cases. Despite the initial success, Joshi could not publish the other parts of Veer Charitra, and Jagadamba Publications only published all 4 parts with 511 pages in 1965. Its publisher, Kamalmani Dixit, thinks that the pleasures of the novel did not escape the politics of the court. I quote, printing the second part of Veer Charitra would be considered as an act of sedition and encourage the uprising against the rule of Chandra Samsher Rana, who was the prime minister and the first main person in power at that time, unquote. Indeed, the novel has politics throughout. So for example, there is a person named Golden Shaman, Sun Zakri, imprisons the protagonist to avenge his friend's fall from power in another city-state. So this is a quote and my translation in the novel, that Agnidatta Brahmin, who is the protagonist, is brave and knows many trickeries. We've turned him dumb and mute with our tantra and medication. If he's free, he'll not wait for a moment to usurp the state. Unquote. The Rana prime ministers of Nepal were anxious about disorder, the usurpation of power, and numerous murderous plots hatched in the court. So I will stop this presentation here with this note that the novelistic traditions in South Asia has these the vernacular narrative traditions and the entanglements with them. The rest of the paper that I've written, it focuses on how it maps the nation, how it even superimposes the British Indian colonial cities and the villages of Nepal and all that descriptions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Pushparaj. It was an excellent presentation, and I could identify many of the characters that you mentioned. Like I grew on Chandrakanta and, Chandrakanta, Santati and Bhutnath by Devki Nandan Khatri. And I could relate, And again, each speaker reinforces that we are one people, perhaps one nation with different subnationalities and different geographical area. And I'm really very pleased to hear your presentation. And now I will request Madam Nipunika Dilani to present her paper. And please give your brief introduction. Please give your brief introduction and then proceed. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Can you give me permission to share screen, please?
Pardon?
Can you give me permission to share screen?
Yeah, I'm sharing. Just 1 minute. Just 1 minute.
Okay.
Kindly send the request.
Sorry?
Send the request, please.
Okay.
इसके बाद मेरा
Okay, I'm sharing you. Just kindly.
It's not still. I cannot share still, sir.
Now you can share.
Yes.
Did you receive?
Yeah.
Yeah, fine.
Not yet.
No, it's coming. It's on the way. Did you receive?
Not yet, sir.
You can access.
Wait. No.
Yeah.
Host disabled participant screen sharing.
Which means you enable it.
I myself should enable it. Not yet.
No, already shared it. Okay, I'll do one thing. Just 1 minute. I've already shared.
Yeah, you have shared your screen. I cannot share my screen, sir.
You can share because that's what I've given, no?
Let me check. No. Still, I get the message, host disabled participant screen
Okay.
share.
Now. Did you receive?
Ah, yes.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, let me share.
Hmm.
Can you see my screen, sir?
No, I am yet to receive. Yeah, I received.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Can you?
you can present. You can present now.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. And dear madam, dear sirs, I'm Nipunika Dilani from, I'm a senior lecturer attached to the Department of English at the Buddhist and Pali University of Sri Lanka. And today's my topic is a narratological analysis of Othello and Chullapadma Jataka. Let me start with a short introduction to narratology, and in this study I will look at the narratology in the structuralist perspective. The structuralists seek to understand how recurrent elements, themes and patterns yield a set of universals that determine the makeup of a story. The narrative theory is internationally accepted term for narratology, which is the study of narrative as a genre. As a framework, narratology includes different genres and levels, which analyzes different characteristics of a narrative, such as story, action, tellability, focalization, narration, time, tense, narrative modes, narrative situation, discourse, and characteristics. Yes. Actually, according to based on the theme of this conference, I have selected William Shakespeare's Othello and Chullapadma Jataka in Buddhist Jataka stories, respectively representing modern literature and ancient literature. The sample represents two different genres that were produced in two different cultural, religious, and social backgrounds. Moving to the methodology, these two works have been purposefully selected from a large canon of each as a representative sample in which a wealth of narrative and dramatic elements has been infused. The study belonging to interpretive paradigm focuses on understanding notions such as theme, plot, character in terms of narratology. Yes, as I'm not going to briefly explain the story of Othello, supposing that we all are familiar with it, but I will, however, I will just tell a brief summary of Chullapadma Jataka. Once the Bodhisattva was born as the eldest prince among among seven princes, when the princes grew as handsome young men, the king had the suspicion that one of them would kill him and take the throne. So the father banished them from the kingdom. While they were walking in the forest, once they finished their food, they decided to kill their wives, starting from the youngest, and on the seventh day, it was the turn of the eldest brother's wife. But he didn't, that is Prince Paduma, that is Bodhisattva, he didn't allow them to kill his wife. Instead, he gave them the portions of flesh that he had saved on other days. In the night, they fled, came to a village. While they were living for some time near the Ganges, one day the Bodhisattva brought a man, a convicted robber who had been punished by having his hands, feet, nose, ears cut off, and was sent drifted down the river in a small boat. So he brought this man out of his kindness to his house, his small hut. While they were living there together in the hut, the wife fell in love with this robber. As her passion grew, the wife wanted her husband, wanted to kill her husband, and she pushed him off a cliff. He fell into a top of a fig tree and survived to become the king after the death of his father. The wife, meanwhile, had carried her lover, that means this limbless man, out in a basket, and they earned living by begging. So one day, the Bodhisattva, while riding his elephant through the streets, giving alms to the poor, saw his wife, though she did not recognize him. He summoned her and told the people assembled there who she was and that what she had done to him. So anyway, the Bodhisattva didn't punished her, but she banished them from the city. That is the story in Chullapadama Jataka. Now moving to the discussion. So you despite very effective amendments made to the narrative sources that Shakespeare based his plays on, the narrative characteristics pervade different modes in the plays. For instance, Desdemona's intense attraction to Othello's narrations about war and adventures. So I quote, she would come again and with a greedy ear devour up my discourse. That is in Act 1, Scene 3. And the senator's high impression on the way in which Desdemona and Othello claim their love illustrates the narrative skills of the playwright. In the same manner, Jataka story writer also uses a unique narrative style that combines two lives, present life and the past life together. The narrative style in Jataka stories is quite similar to folk tale narration. Yes, so I can in these narratives we can find these two narratives share common themes. So one major theme is sexual jealousy. In both narratives we can see how these narratives have been written around the common theme, main theme of sexual jealousy. Iago, affected by excessive sexual jealousy, destroys the happy couple Othello and Desdemona. The subtlety of the theme and the complexity of the plot solely depend on Iago's plans to destroy the happy marriage life of Othello and Desdemona. Iago victimizes almost all the characters in the play who are ignorant of his wicked plans. This intensifies the complexity of the plot. Iago, concealing his jealousy, uses the other characters strategically, pretending to be honest and helpful to everybody. So in Jataka story, in Chullapaduma Jataka, also out of jealousy and fear, the woman attempts to murder Prince Paduma. She fears that the prince will ruin her illegal relationship with this man. So the latter part of the story is woven around her jealousy and its victims. In terms of vengeance, another common theme in these two pieces of literature. Othello's love turns into vengeance in the play within a very short while without even having a proper proof of adultery. The characterization of these two pieces show double standards of behavior. What is seen by the audience is not the reality. Iago has been seen as a genuine friend. Even Othello's dark side is covered from the society till he cruelly kills Desdemona. But Desdemona is portrayed as a wicked woman who betrayed her father and Othello later. Vice versa happens, but in reality, vice versa happens. Othello's irrational revenge extends to kill innocent Desdemona, whereas Prince Paduma, unlike Othello, saves the life of the woman in spite of his eyewitness adultery of the woman. So this woman tried to kill the man, the Prince Paduma, but still he does not take the revenge from the woman, unlike Othello. Othello, even without having proper proof of Desdemona's adultery, he tends to kill Desdemona. Okay, next, the plot. So Freytag's dramatic arc can be used to analyze the plots of these two pieces of literature. The play follows similar 5-act structure of Renaissance drama with alterations to the sequence of events. In the development of sequence of event of the play, the first act explains Desdemona's elopement with Othello, which can be attributed to the exposition and inciting incident, because the main characters are introduced along with their defined features that are related to the development of the plot. The self-explanation of Iago conveys, as in this quotation, prepares the audience to experience his villainy in the preceding acts, and the lines show how cunningly he exploits the defined features of other characters to achieve his target. Act 2 prepares the ground for the crisis in which Iago executes the first part of his plot by getting Cassio drunk, urging him into a brawl with Rodrigo as he had planned before. The plot starts moving towards its tragic climax at the beginning of the Act 3 with the Iago's instigation of Othello to suspect Cassio and Desdemona to be secret lovers. Iago continues fueling Othello's jealousy with various fabrications, especially telling Cassio, muttering of Desdemona's love, and so many incidents take place in between. So in then Act 4 spans to the fall in action, where Iago capitalizes on Othello's present state of mind and continues to deceive Othello. Yes, so in that way we can analyze this play according to this dramatic arc. So in the same manner, we can analyze the Jataka tale as well. So at the outset of the Jataka, the special characteristics are revealed, that even the father builds up a fear that his handsome sons would dethrone him. However, the sons obey the father and leave the country, and their perception of women is clear in the way they decide to kill the wives for their survival. However, Prince Paduma, that's Bodhisattva's characteristics, are exposed in the way he strives to save the wife. His selflessness is clear in the way he gives blood from his need to quench the thirst of his wife. And the wife's character is also revealed in the way she demands water, treats the husband, and cheats on him and other people. Gradually, with the rising actions of these incidents, the story reaches its climax with the wife's attempts to murder the prince. From there, the story falls and reaches its resolution with the exposition of the deception of the woman, for which Prince Padma forgives, showing his exceptional qualities. Yes, so now, yes, symbolism, like the manipulation of symbolism also ensures the smooth narration of the two works. The handkerchief, the first gift Othello gets, first gifts of Othello to Desdemona, that serves as the ocular proof of Desdemona's alleged infidelity, is highly symbolic. There are so many symbols. I'm not going to talk about all. Padma means lily. That means purity of the Bodhisattva. Those pure characteristics are exposed symbolically in the Jataka tale. So the next, yes, sir.
Time is over, kindly.
Okay, I will. These are the narrative characteristics I have found in these two works, and like moving to the yes. So as he has
Kindly wind up, because
yes,
the other parts.
Thank you, sir. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And it was indeed a very nice talk. And I'm very thankful to God that Shakespeare was not charged for plagiarism, because nowadays, if you have any kind of similar story, you may be charged for plagiarism. And with this, now I will come to my own presentation, and I will stick to the time. In case I overshoot, please stop me and I'll stop there, because I can't see my own time. So I'll make a mark here. Yes. So I'll present a PowerPoint. I'll present a PowerPoint. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sharing you.
Yeah.
Just I've sent the message.
Yeah.
You can take over.
Okay. So I am.
Yeah, you can start.
Can you see? No,
I'm meant to see.
Go to ऊपर जाओ, first slide. Acha. So I am Anand Kumar, and I am a national fellow at the Indian Institute of Advanced Studies in Shimla. So you can see from my dress how cool it is. And I will present something about a genre of which many people are not familiar these days, that is Baramasa. And a good example of Baramasa is Padmavat by Malik Muhammad Jaisi. And this genre of literature was... can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. So this genre is very specific to Indian subcontinent, and from current day Pakistan up to Manipur. Even in Manipuri, the Baramasa is there, and of course in whole of the northern India and even in southern India, these Baramasa kind of things are there. And this describes 6 seasons of the 12 months in Baramasa, and it has Vedic origin. Even in the Vedas, Rig Veda, and later on Atharva Veda, that the seasons are described very beautifully in nice poems. And please go back first. So these are the songs of 6 seasons. And it relates to what is very peculiar about it, it relates to the effects of seasons on human psychology in relation to his love life, spiritual pursuit, or other concerns. And it is mentioned even in old Sanskrit texts like Natya Shastra of Bharat Muni and Ritu Samhar by Kalidas. And there are different types of Baramasas, like just plain description of the beauty of 6 seasons, that is called Shad Ritu Varnan, and then the description of each season with either viraha, when the lovers they part, then they experience the season very differently than when they unite and they are together. So these are the, this is another type of Baramasa. And there is a special kind of Baramasa introduced by Keshav Das, and it is an advice by a wife to her husband against separation in any season. And then there are religious Baramasas, and that is the viraha, or the feeling of separation of the soul from God. And this has been written long time back, and even Guru Nanak has written Baramaha, Guru Arjan Dev has written Baramaha, Eknath has written Rukmini Swayamvar. So all these are the intense cry of the soul for the God. And then there are agricultural Baramasas, and it shows a farmer's anxiety for sowing and harvesting his crop. And this is very popular in Bengal. Now, so medieval age Baramasas, the most famous Baramasa is in Padmavat of Malik Muhammad Jaisi, and he wrote Padmavat in Avdi language, and its first translation was done in Arakan under the order of Magan Thakur, and it was done by Allah Lol. So he translated that in Bengali and added, so many verses on his own, and it was in very Sanskritized Bengali. And this song is still sung, by minstrels and wandering yogis in North India. So they beg, they sing this song and they beg. And about this book, the Padmavat is one of the greatest epics of Hindi. Ramchandra Shukla, a doyen of Hindi literature and a great critic, has said that. And Vasudev Sharan Agarwal, a very famous man, he has said that Padmavat deserves a place amongst the greatest epics of the world. And Shiref, one of the translators in English language, he says Jaisi is the prophet of unity. And Vijay Dev Narayan Shahi, another very famous and very well recognized critic, says, in a way, Jaisi is the first proper poet of Hindi. Kabir shows effort. In Jaisi, effort is not visible. So he says that Jaisi is the first poet of Hindi literature. Now, about Padmavat story, you need not read that. I'll just tell you that there is a king of Chittor. He goes to a utopia kind of island that is single. There he marries a divine beauty. Her name is Padmavati. And when he goes to single, and he spends 1 year, and then he experiences those 6 seasons with his divine wife. And then here in Chittor, his first wife, Nagmati, sings another Baramasa that is of the Viraha. And then he comes back, and then to the ordinary life of Chittor, and Aladdin Khilji comes and takes away. He wants his wife. So there is a big strife and all that. So but what I will focus is on Baramasa that Jaisi writes in single, and just in juxtaposition, the next chapter is the Baramasa of Viraha by Nagmati. And this kind of masterly, juxtaposition is not seen anywhere in literature, and both accentuate each other, by their contrast. So the Canto 29 and Canto 30, they are in juxtaposition, and one sings of Shad Ritu Varnan, the utopia of single, And then Nagamati Vyokhand, that is the earthly Chittor, where she is pining for her husband. And time is short, so I will not say, the great comments are made on these Baramasas, and they are one of the greatest literary pieces of Viraha in Hindi literature. I will skip that. So the Baramasas, they show these kind of love Baramasas, ephemerality of existence, that existence is very short. And they show psychological continuity between microcosm and macrocosm. That is, the man and the environment, they are psychologically continuous with each other. And the Baramasas show that the separation causes grief and misery to the lovers, human or the bhaktas of the divine. The separation of the lovers is an allegory of the separation of man from divine, and man's pain and suffering due to his exile from paradise. The intensity of the experience of the separation induced grief at its zenith is annihilation into divine, that is fana for a Sufi. This is the experience of fana for a Sufi. From another viewpoint, by volitional exile from heaven, because Ratan Sen returns after her wife's, message comes, and he learns that she is pining and in very bad shape. Then he feels like coming back with his new wife. So from another viewpoint, by volitional exile from heaven, man enters, asks for divine punishment and mortality in the world. When he returns, he again experiences the mortality, divine punishment. However, suffering is the bridge between heaven and the world, the passage between two worlds which stand opposite to each other. The significance of separation in love can be gauged by the following lines in Padmavat. Now I'll show you. This is the Shad Ritu Varnan and the beauty of Sharad Ritu in Utopia of Singal, in Paradise of Singal, how beautiful it is. And then you will see how sorrowful and melancholic it is on earth, it is in Chittor. From now we are comparing the Baramasa of the union of lovers in paradise and the separation of lovers on earth. So I'll read it. I'll just compare. Night fell. The girl glowed like the moon. The king felt the quietening. I think it is something is high. Can you? That's okay. The king felt the quietening of earth. Kartik had come. The full moon rose. It wished to touch the sun on the Sharad night, stretching the strings of the bows of her brows. The girl fired lustful glances sidelong. I am aware of the bound of your resolve. I won't lose today. I swear by my father, not like yesterday, just chaperoning a maiden, battle fiercely like Ravan today. She challenges her lover. This is going on in heaven. An army of adornments, an elephant's gate. I come holding the pennant of my stole. My eyes are the ocean. My nose is a dagger. Who dare oppose me in war? I am Queen Padmavati, the victor of gratifications and all joys. You are a yogi. Seek your own match. Battle with your own kind. So this kind of dialogue, a happy dialogue between lovers is going on in paradise of
Kumarji, I think
yeah, my time is over, and then you will find a very, very morose and melancholic call from Nagmati, who's in Chittor. So with this introduction, I think if one wants to read more, one can read more. With this introduction, my time is over. So I stop here. And I thank all the participants a lot. And by sharing, we have learned that the history of literature in all these countries is a shared one. and all of us can easily empathize with the history of literature and, you know, our culture in all these BIMSTEC and SAARC countries. And with this, I think I call it a day, because now the next session will begin and we must quit the stage now. So thank you all very much. Thank you.
I
Thank-
sincerely, on behalf of both Ajit Kaur ma'am and Dr. K. Srinivas Rao ji, Secretary Sahitya Academy, I sincerely thank all the participants for having been contributed your erudition with us right from the chair of this session, Sri Anand Kumar ji from India, and followed by Dr. Ashraf Jewel ji from Bangladesh and Dr. Fakhrul Alam ji, in fact, Professor Fakhrul Alam ji from Bangladesh, and Dr. Pushparaj Acharya from Nepal, and Ms. Nipudika Dilani ji from Sri Lanka. All of you, thank you so much. And I sincerely thank all the viewers for paying your attention towards the Bismatic Literature Festival. And tomorrow, with this 9th session has come to end. Tomorrow we shall meet at exactly at 10 o'clock with the 10th session, where the poetry readings will take place. With this, Namaskar, Jai Hind.
Namaskar.
Thank you.